Anthony Michael Hall comments on John Hughes and going from brat to villain in Reacher. With news of a potential St. Elmo's Fire sequel blowing up the internet, all eyes are turning to other 1980s cult classics, primarily 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club, which celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. In a recent interview with MovieWeb to chat up his gritty role in Season 3 of Reacher opposite Alan Ritchson, Anthony Michael Hall, who starred in both films, told MovieWeb that, "I've always tipped my hat to director John Hughes. I wouldn't be here without him," Hall added. "I think of that great Isaac Newton quote about standing on the shoulders of giants. In my life, John Hughes was that. Harold Ramis was that. Lorne Michaels. I was very privileged at a young age to work with great people. And it's always about that. It's about the company you keep and the collaboration. And of course, your work-life experience." Back in 1985, Hall played Brian Johnson in The Breakfast Club alongside Molly Ringwald, Andrew McCarthy, Emilio Estevez, Judd Hirsch, and Ali Sheedy. The dramedy, about a group of teens enduring school detention on a Saturday, became an instant hit and made stars out of the young actors, paving the way for the official Brat Pack to be born with St. Elmo's Fire in 1986. The stars of that film, Rob Lowe, and this year's Oscar nominee for The Substance, Demi Moore, are reportedly putting together St. Elmo's Fire 2. How about The Breakfast Club? Watch this space for updates on a potential sequel to Hall's early comedy. It's not unreasonable to suspect that a sequel may be a consideration, especially now that Rob Lowe teased the fate of St. Elmo's Fire. In the meantime, Hall has been busy. In Season 3 of Prime Video's super hit, Reacher, Hall plays Zachary Beck, a sketchy millionaire and Oriental rug importer in Maine who is covering up an intricate crime ring. Alan Ritchson's Jack Reacher arrives on the scene attempting to rescue a former colleague who's been abducted by criminals tied to Beck's operation. The action-packed season also stars Sonia Cassidy, Brian T., Johnny Berchtold, and Maria Sten, who has been tapped to helm the Neegly spin-off series. Amazon Prime is amazing, Hall beamed of the streaming platform. He also admitted how he felt playing a villain, noting, "I think some of my favorite actors growing up played good villains, Jack Nicholson or Christopher Walken. I just love playing villains, it's a lot of fun. You want to bring some lightness into the dark, and at the same time there was this great storyline this season with Son. That was really fun to explore." The actors were top-shelf people across the board. When you hear the name Anthony Michael Hall, your mind might instantly rewind to the Technicolor halls of Shermer High, where he played the quintessential brainiac in The Breakfast Club, or the lovable dweeb who built a dream girl in Weird Science. He was the lanky, wide-eyed teenager who embodied awkward adolescence with a disarming honesty. But flash forward nearly 4 decades, and Hall is flexing a different kind of muscle, this time as a brooding villain in Amazon's gritty action series Reacher. It's a shift that surprises fans but feels to Hall like a full-circle moment in a career shaped by the late, great John Hughes. "John gave me my career," Hall says, his voice softening with reverence. "He had this instinct for finding people who could tap into something real, something vulnerable. I owe him everything." Hall first teamed up with Hughes in 16 Candles 1984, a film that cemented his place among the Brat Pack, the unofficial tribe of young stars who dominated coming-of-age cinema in the 80s. But it was The Breakfast Club 1985, directed by Hughes, that defined an era and sealed Hall's legacy as the archetype of the nerd. "When we shot that film, we didn't know it would become this cultural monolith," he says. John had this way of writing teen characters with layers. You weren't just the nerd or the jock, you were someone. Hall smiles, recalling Hughes not just as a director, but as a sort of artistic father figure. He was funny, whip-smart, and a little bit of a rebel himself. He'd play music on set, joke around, but he knew exactly what he wanted. And he trusted us, these kids, with stories that mattered. Despite the early acclaim, Hall resisted being typecast. He turned down roles that mimicked his geek persona and instead took a surprising detour by joining Saturday Night Live at just 17, the youngest cast member ever. It was risky, Hall admits. People didn't know what to make of it. But I didn't want to be boxed in. I didn't want to be the eternal teenager. Fast forward to 2023, and Hall made waves as Langston, the cold, calculating villain in the second season of Reacher. Gone were the suspenders and school desks. In their place, tailored suits, quiet menace, and the eyes of a man who's seen and perhaps done too much. I love playing Langston, Hall says. It was a challenge. He's the opposite of who I was in those early films. He's ruthless, strategic, dangerous. But that's what drew me to him. After years of playing underdogs, I wanted to step into a role where I could intimidate, not just empathize. Audiences were shocked and thrilled. The soft-spoken kid from Shermer, Illinois, was now a menacing force in a noir universe of government conspiracies and explosive violence. But Hall says the transition was less of a reinvention than an evolution. Actors are like musicians, he says. You have your early albums, your breakout hits. But you grow. You try new sounds. Reacher was my heavy metal moment. The show's creator, Nick Santora, says Hall brought unexpected depth to Langston. We needed someone who could deliver menace without twirling a mustache. Anthony had that quiet gravitas, that weight behind his eyes. And there's a twist of empathy in how he plays evil. It makes you wonder what this man was before he became the bad guy. Behind the scenes, Hall relished the physicality of the role. I trained a lot, boxing, tactical work. It was important that I could move like someone who's dangerous, not just talk like him. But despite the dramatic shift, Hall sees a thematic thread connecting his work with Hughes and his darker roles today. Both John's films and something like Reacher are about identity, he explains. They're about people trying to make sense of who they are in a world that doesn't always make sense. And perhaps that's the real magic of Hall's career, a refusal to be pinned down, to play by the rules of typecasting. He's not just the brain, not just the villain. He's a storyteller who's evolved with his craft, unafraid to revisit his past while stepping boldly into new terrain. Sometimes people say, I grew up with you, Hall shares. And that's beautiful. But I've grown up too. I've gone from being the kid in the library to the man pulling strings behind closed doors. And I'm not done yet. Even now, Hall speaks of Hughes with a kind of hushed awe. John taught me that sincerity is power. That honesty on screen resonates. Whether you're making someone laugh, cry, or grip their seat, it's all about truth. And while John Hughes passed away in 2009, his legacy endures, etched into the DNA of every heartfelt teen comedy and every actor, like Hall, who once roamed those cinematic high schools. I think about him often, Hall says, and I think he'd love that I'm still surprising people. So what's next for Anthony Michael Hall? He grins. Maybe a comedy. Maybe a drama. Maybe both. I've learned never to say never. That's the fun of it. And perhaps that's the real magic of Hall's career, a refusal to be pinned down, to play by the rules of typecasting. He's not just the brain. Not just the villain. He's a storyteller who's evolved with his craft, unafraid to revisit his past while stepping boldly into new terrain. Sometimes people say, I grew up with you, Hall shares. And that's beautiful. But I've grown up too. I've gone from being the kid in the library to the man pulling strings behind closed doors. And I'm not done yet. Even now, Hall speaks of Hughes with a kind of hushed awe. John taught me that sincerity is power. That honesty on screen resonates. Whether you're making someone laugh, cry, or grip their seat, it's all about truth. And while John Hughes passed away in 2009, his legacy endures, etched into the DNA of every heartfelt teen comedy and every actor like Hall who once roamed those cinematic high schools. I think about him often, Hall says, and I think he'd love that I'm still surprising people. So what's next for Anthony Michael Hall? He grins. Maybe a comedy. Maybe a drama. Maybe both. I've learned never to say never. That's the fun of it.